sometimes it's nice to give people a tool for them to look at when they're trying to understand the behavior of narcissistic personality type people. Because I imagine, like, well, how do people end up at my videos? They're probably awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, Googling, like, what is a narcissist? Or why does my husband speak to me like this? Why does my girlfriend lie all the time? Or whatever it is. And you end up here. But if I just give you dry psychological lists, it kind of feels good while you're consuming it, but you probably won't remember it. And that's not really the way that humans evolved to remember. We evolved to remember through stories, through narratives. So let me give you a short narrative to help you remember how to decipher the behavior of the person that you're involved with, because I know it's confusing. So, there was once a little boy, we shall call him Timothy. Timothy was smart, he was very bright, and he was raised in a strange household. His father was a selfish man, indifferent to him, more concerned with making money, being famous in his own field, and pursuing other women who were not Timothy's mother. His mother was an emotionally immature person. She was good-hearted but overly sentimental, highly codependent, had very, very poor boundaries. And when the father of Timothy would abandon her to be with other women, it hurt her, but it also made her feel like she couldn't do anything about it. She couldn't say anything about it. When she felt lonely without the father there, her father was a Freudian slip, sorry. You know how partner and parent are linguistically very similar words? Anyway, we'll leave that for now. There was emotional incest. Emotional, not physical, not sexual, but emotional incest. She would rely on Timothy for companionship when the father would disappear. She would lean on him and she would project emotions and thoughts towards the little boy that were not really appropriate for his age or for the relationship that they were in. Time went on. The father was indifferent and competitive. He was jealous of Timothy's mother's love for the little boy. And Timothy was very hurt by that because he really wanted his daddy to see him and to love him. And his daddy didn't want to. He found him annoying, saw him as a threat, treated him with passive aggression and contempt, and gave him very, very little attention. The mother saw this, felt guilty for giving Timothy that father, and she poured more love, more affection, and more attention onto Timothy in compensation. Across time, as Timothy grew, he was trapped in this dynamic. The house didn't feel safe. There was always an air of conflict and resentment there. His mother began to drink to cope with the painful emotions she was dealing with, and the father began to spend more and more time away. The more she drank, the more emotionally dysregulated she became, the more she used Timothy as a crutch. Timothy had his boundaries shattered by his mother and his self-worth destroyed by his father. He was trapped between two polarities that were communicating two different things to him. One polarity was communicating to him, you are worthless. You cannot do right for doing wrong. You are pointless. I have no interest in you. And this made Timothy feel very, very bad. The other one was telling him, you are wonderful. You are angelic. You are godlike. You cannot do wrong for doing right. And occasionally peppered into that would be fits of psychotic rage, where as Timothy grew, the mother would see the father in Timothy By the time Timothy had got to 8, 9, 10 years old, he really started to resemble the father that was betraying her. And she projected that rage because she couldn't project it onto the father. She projected it onto the son. He sounded like her husband. He looked like her husband. He was developing gestures like the husband. And so she would dump her rage occasionally onto Timothy. In response to that, once she'd sobered up, she felt even more guilty and even more compelled to smother Timothy in a compensatory fashion with more love, more attention, and more doting. At some point in this process of feeling unsafe and uncertain, Timothy's ability to form proper ego boundaries broke. His capacity to see reality as it was became damaged. Very, very damaged. Remember, Timothy's still very young. His neuroplasticity is at its height, and he's extraordinarily impressionable, and very strange, dark, tortured and twisted impressions are being sunk into the plasticine of the little boy's brain and central nervous system. It's going to be impossible for Timothy to grow into an adult who can relate to reality in a sane way. It's going to be impossible for Timothy to grow into an adult who can relate to other human beings in a sane way. Timothy retreats into a fantasy world in which everything his mother tells him about who he is and what he's all about is true, and everything his father communicates to him about his worthlessness is false. The rule in Timothy's mind becomes, if person tell me I'm good, then absolute truth. It's a mathematical formula that he's created. If person tell me I'm bad equals absolute falsehood. Timothy learns to split. This is an infantile response to a highly traumatic environment. Turns out, Timothy's very, very, very good at playing the piano. It's something that his father encouraged him to do and paid lessons for. His father used to play the piano and gave it up. Timothy becomes very, very good at it. He becomes a little bit famous because he's so young and he's so good at playing the piano that the local press come and take pictures of him, and he has performances locally and musicians tell him he's amazing. Timothy notices that his parents behave like a happy couple when they're in the public light. There are pictures of him with his mother and father smiling proudly, him in between them. And when the cameras are on them, he sees he can enjoy a few moments, fantastical moments of what it would be like to live inside of a normal, wholesome family where the mother and father love each other in a normal way and where the mother and father love him in a normal way. This happens again and again. Timothy eventually develops a craving, like an addict, for a drug for these moments where he is in the limelight and where he feels loved and feels seen. But his young brain learns that he is never going to be seen for who he really is. He's only going to experience the magnificent cocaine and heroin speedball whilst receiving attention for performing. He learns to associate love. He misassociates. It's incorrect. He learns to associate love with adulation and audience applause, with performance, not with being. For him now, he's doomed. The rest of his life, he'll never know authentic love. In fact, his central nervous system will not crave authentic love. It will reject authentic love as alien, as weird, as corrupt. What he has now rewired to is adulation in the public eye for an audience in relation to him performing. He has now learned permanently, irretractably, that he is not lovable, but that the person he can pretend to be when he performs can receive love, but it's not love, it's just applause and adulation. Timothy now only knows self-worth through a mirror. He can never receive it directly. He's not interested in receiving it directly. Throughout his adolescent years, this will worsen. He will become more manipulative. He'll become more self-centered. He'll become more entitled, more interpersonally exploitative as he doubles down on his new favorite drug. He's an addict. He will be an addict for life. His drug is called narcissistic supply. All of his behavior, all of his behavior, his personality, his worldview will be centralized around acquiring the drug of narcissistic supply. He can only receive the drug of narcissistic supply through a mirror of adulation, and it must involve him performing, and it must involve an audience. By the age of 21, even though it's not normal in his culture, he finds a woman who is meek, codependent, fawning, has weak ego boundaries, and guess what he does? He replicates the marriage his father had with his mother, and now he plays his father's role. He is self-centered, he is philandering, he is indifferent, he is bullying, and he's distant. And the woman he's chosen reflects exactly the character traits of his mother, while he plays out the character traits of his father. He has not married another human being. He has recruited her as the perfect audience member, a captive audience. She's married to him. She cannot leave. She doesn't have the strength. She doesn't have the power to leave. He then starts having children. He doesn't love his children. They are also captive audience members. He forms his own enterprise, not to do any good in the world, but to create a cult of people who are dependent upon him financially. Money, his looks, his charm, his skill, his capacity to perform, all of this are tools. All of these things are weapons in a war that he's waging against the rest of humanity to soak up as much of their attention, supplication, and submission as he possibly can. He becomes lost in that mirror world. He has no interest in the real world anymore. Only humans are interested in authenticity and vulnerability and reality. What good does any of that do him? What good has any of that ever done him, being vulnerable and authentic? Who cares about authenticity? Do I get my favorite drug through being authentic? No. Do I get my favorite drug through being vulnerable? No. Through being humble, through being full of awe and reverence? Absolutely not. How do I get my favorite drug? By living in the mirror, by being a total performance at all times, whose only focus is garnering more and more narcissistic supply. That was the terrible and tragic tale of Timothy. I hope that you could hear it, and I hope that you can internalize it. It's not a very nice story, but then narcissistic personality disorder is not a very nice personality disorder. If you're ever wondering why they do what they do, or how you should try to cooperate or operate with them, please remember the story. You can change the genders, you can change the sexuality. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make the slightest bit of difference whatsoever. It will play out in the same way at its core. Everything will be done for narcissistic supply. Everything will be done through the mirror as a performance for an audience. Women, especially in our culture, but there's cultural factors, there's genetic factors. It will be done through different means. The strategies will be somewhat different and the tactics will be somewhat different, but the core principles remain exactly the same. The point is to gain as much narcissistic supply as possible through the mirror, through an audience. Narcissistic supply requires applause, adulation, and submission. It's a cult of one. They are the idol at the center of that cult. You are not a husband. You are not a wife. You are not a child. You are not a father of people like this. You are an acolyte, and you will do as you are told, or you are nothing. All very brutal, this stuff. But it's to help you to remember so that when you're sat there at night wondering what's going on or wondering what next move on the chessboard you should make, you'll remember this and you'll be guided by it. I hope. Ladies and gents, I have a new course. It is hopefully the last course I ever make. I don't think I'll need to make another one after this. I've set myself no time limits, no restrictions. I've treated it as though I'm doing face-to-face coaching with you. And so if I need to cover a topic and it needs to be covered thoroughly, I take the time to do it. At the moment, I think the course is around 15 hours long. If I need to make amendments afterwards, I reserve the right to do that. I will continue adding to this course for as long as I feel is necessary until I've gone, okay, that's it. That's me. I've said everything I can say about helping people to recover from narcissistic abuse. The course is a total roadmap, a total narcissistic abuse recovery roadmap from beginning, step by step by step by step by step to the end. The syntax of the course has been set carefully. You're going to ask in the comments, can I do this with my therapist? Can I do this with my counselor? Please do. Please do get the assistance of a qualified mental health practitioner, preferably one who has a very good understanding of narcissistic abuse, and they can go through the course with you and they can adapt bits of the course for you. If you do the course, I can't promise that all the problems will go away in a few months. What I would say is a realistic target is that inside of 2 months of working on the course, you would start to feel 80 to 90% better. That's realistic. And you might go, well, that would mean I only have 10% healing to do. Yes, my friends, but that last 10 might be an ongoing journey for the rest of your life. I want you to set your expectations properly. It's a very good course. I'm very happy with it. It's very thorough. It leaves no stone unturned, but it is a course. It's a course we do online. So there's a limit to how much it can actually do. Therapy is going to help as well. If you do these techniques and your therapist takes the techniques and adapts them for you specifically, it's going to be very, very powerful. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention. And I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Thank you.